Hey, what's up guys? In this video we are going to be going over the vintage tape module in Ozone 8. Open it up right here. There it is. And vintage tape is a tape machine emulation. And why do you want to use tape machine? Well, tape machine does a few things when you bounce your audio to it. It adds some saturation, which is, analog warmness, and it adds a subtle kind of compression to it. And that's the reason why kind of tapes have become like the soup of the day. They've become kind of like this holy grail of emulation just because they're so difficult to emulate. There's a lot of moving parts, literally. There's the speed of the machine, linear characteristics, the tape head, the other tape head, the dust that's on it, the guy drinking coffee standing in the room. There's a lot of things going on. And, how the audio is rented to like magnetic or whatever oxide the tape is made out of, Smurf juice or whatever. There's a lot of things going into vintage tape, and vintage tape people love because it adds subtle saturation and compression, and to nail those two things at once, I assume is you know very difficult to do and have it sound kind of musical as well. And tape is, analog stuff is very subjective, and it really depends on what the material is. Anyway, I can go on for days. I don't own any tape, by the way, full disclosure. So this is a vintage tape, and it's kind of a stripped down kind of thing. There's no, spinning tape reels or anything like that. It's the options that you want to look at in the digital realm. So what you have here is you have tape speed. It's the speed that the tape is going through the tape head. So, right, 30 is fast, 30 whatever per second. So 30 is faster, 15, and then 7.5. So naturally you'd think that the slower speeds would add a little bit more saturation because there's not enough data on the tape to write to. And so just keep that in mind depending on what you're going for. 15 can be lo-fi, 30 can be, higher quality. And what do I do when I mouse over it? Modifies frequency response of the wavelength. Yeah, there you go. So what this means is like lower frequencies will distort more as more and more. That's the thing about tape is like the higher frequencies will distort faster than the lower frequencies. So it's like a non-linear kind of distortion. And that's what everyone has a fetish about these days. So there's that. And then you have your input drive, which is how much you're feeding into the tape. And what this does is this gives you more of a, it gives you more saturation. And remember, the higher frequencies distort faster than the lower ones, as far as I know. I could be completely wrong. That's the input drive that controls that, right? The bias controls, what does it say? Applies the character. So it modifies the frequency dependent non-linearity. What the heck does that mean? Well, let's demonstrate. And I'll demonstrate it first, and then I'll explain it to you. So when the bias is all the way down, the higher frequencies will distort more than the lower frequencies. When it goes up, the lower frequencies will distort before the higher ones. This is tape bias. I'm not sure quite how you set this on a hardware unit, but it's an option in a lot of these tape emulations. I'm not an expert in tape. I'm an 80s kid, 87 word. So there's that. So if you want to kind of adjust the character of the distortion, there you go. Harmonics, what this does is boost harmonics. It adds harmonics into the tape distortion. So you get like that tape kind of saturation type of thing. Keep in mind that tape is also a compressor, and that's what people like about it. It's not so much the saturation, because you can just run things through, the things that you run audio through, and it won't sound like tape. Tape is a compressor as well. So let's go over something called tape bump. And this is something really cool that tape does. And this is what makes it exceptionally useful for me, is you have this low emphasis, and it will control the tape head bump. It basically boosts the low end. And right now it's set to the default value of 2.0. Right, it can add some low-end character to your sound. And that is the bread and butter, in my opinion, of this particular module, Ozone 8. Just adding low end that just sounds tapey, I guess. All right, and then you have your high emphasis. You can boost the high end depending on what bias setting you have. So if you have a low bias, you're losing a lot of the high end. So check this out. Or whatever. You can emphasize the highs and stuff like that. Before, I think this is yeah, on the post, I believe. Yeah, it would have to be after the tape, and yeah, it just sounds nice and neat. So yeah, that is tape. It's a way to kind of make the whatever you're mastering sound a bit more cohesive. It's also a way to add some low end. You'd have tape after maybe some compression, maybe a bit of dynamics, and you know, doing some things, and then you'd want to bounce to tape afterwards. You bounce to tape after all the EQing and stuff. Bounce it to tape. That's a term. You're not actually bouncing anything. You're just having it, you know, the second last thing in your chain here, and then you'd add a maximizer, and then there you go. And there's that, and that is tape. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Take care and have a good one.